At first, no one paid attention to this disaster, until someone was startled, discovering countless migratory birds in the sky, forming flocks and flying southward. The scene was both majestic and terrifying. At the same time, many zoo animals also suddenly felt restless and anxious, as if sensing an impending disaster. That evening, a rare storm attacked the center of Tokyo. The police were urging everyone to quickly go home and take refuge, but at that moment, a hailstone the size of a basketball suddenly struck a car. After that, more hailstones started falling from the sky. Before people could react, they were screaming and running in panic. But many were unfortunately hit by them, falling to the ground, never to stand up again. "Dad, where are you?" And in the distant South Pole, a research team was drilling an ice core sample. One of them was drilling into the ice surface, when a large crack suddenly spread nearby. When team leader Jack felt the tremors, he opened the door to check, and saw his companion and the drill slipping down below. Luckily, at that critical moment, Jack ran over and pulled him back. Then, he helplessly watched the drill fall into the endless abyss. Without the help of equipment, they couldn't continue their mission. So, to retrieve the just drilled ice core, Jack, despite the danger, jumped to the side of the cracking ice block. Although he jumped over and retrieved the ice core, the ice crack was getting larger. To prevent risk, Jack didn't hesitate to jump back. Unexpectedly, just after handing the ice core to his colleague, the ice beneath his feet cracked, causing him to fall. At that critical moment, the ice pick he was carrying saved his life. Only then did he notice a massive crack seemingly running across the entire surface of the Antarctic ice. With the help of his colleagues, Jack was finally pulled back to safety. But, the scene before their eyes still left them dumbfounded, speechless. On another side, at the Headland Climate Research Centre in Scotland, the marine surveillance team accidentally detected an alarm message from one of their buoys at sea, indicating a sudden temperature drop of 13 degrees. At first, they thought the buoy was malfunctioning, until the next day, another buoy issued a warning. What is the probability of 2 buoys failing? Very low. Meanwhile, at the International Space Station orbiting in space, 3 astronauts suddenly saw through the window a large storm cloud, without knowing when, had quietly gathered in the eastern sky of the United States, seemingly preparing for a terrible disaster. Not long after, on the beaches of Los Angeles, suddenly hailstones appeared, the size of basketballs. And the sky above the city also formed a terrible tornado. The destructive power of high-speed vortices quickly destroyed nearby structures. At this point, the government only realized the severity of the problem. Therefore, the National Meteorological immediately summoned experts to find the causes of climate change and corresponding countermeasures. Among them was Jack, who had just returned from the South Pole. Jack had always studied paleoclimatology. He had discovered some clues from the ice core samples, but needed supercomputers to verify his hypotheses. High-ranking officials of the meteorological agency gathered to investigate the reasons behind. They could not have imagined that the tornadoes appearing in the city would bring them unprecedented dangers. The Hollywood sign had been reduced to rubble. Places where tornadoes passed became chaotic piles. What's even scarier is, when 2 tornadoes merged into one, a super tornado began to devastate everywhere with enormous energy. Only saw countless cars being lifted into the air, a horrifying rain of cars pouring down. High-rise buildings also began to collapse one after another. Heaps of devastation. Some people tried to drive away in their cars, but unexpectedly, a flying bus crashed through the death barrier. A reporter standing at a distance thought this place was safe, but unexpectedly, a billboard was blown away and suddenly flew towards him. People watching this dangerous scene on TV remained silent. But things were not over yet. A gigantic tornado has devastated the entire Los Angeles area. A cleaner wearing headphones seems unaware of what has happened. But after a violent shake, he opens the door to check and sees an unforgettable scene. Because many planes were also affected, so the president ordered to urgently halt all aviation activities. That day, many countries and cities had to endure terrible tornado storms. But meteorologists and professors gathered here could not explain the cause behind this anomaly. Someone asked whether it was due to the sun affecting global climate. However, employees of the National Space Agency have dismissed this speculation. At that moment, Jack stated his hypothesis. He suspected that this might be related to the warm ocean currents in the North Atlantic, found not long ago. Jack had obtained information about greenhouse gases from the ice core samples he inspected to verify his hypotheses. Global warming had melted glaciers in polar regions, and a large amount of freshwater flowed into the sea. When the balance between the salt and seawater was disrupted, then the warm ocean currents in the North Atlantic would also change. If these currents slow down or stop, then the Earth could enter another ice age. But to confirm these things, they need to input some data from the Headland Climate Center into their paleoclimate model, while also needing to activate supercomputers to calculate. You mean, this abnormal weather will continue, right? Not only will it continue, but it will get worse. I believe we are facing an intense climate change under the direction of high-ranking leaders. Jack and his colleagues have started calculating paleoclimate models. However, after a day and night of hard work, they received a result that made everyone unacceptable. That within the next 6 to 8 weeks, the Earth will experience an extremely severe climate change, and humanity will also face an extreme survival challenge. Jack hurried to find the vice president in charge of the related departments, hoping he would quickly carry out mass evacuations of the population, especially some northern cities. But the vice president was not at all concerned. After hearing these words, he even thought that Jack was spreading nonsense rumors. Although Jack tried to prove, but the vice president was no longer interested in his words. Anyway, these words were no different than those of a madman. As if to prove Jack's conclusion, Scotland was the first place to endure an unprecedented snowstorm. Never before. 3 ocean monitors were trapped at the Headland Climate Research Center. But fortunately, this place had ample supplies, so even staying there for a few months was not a problem. However, others were not so lucky. To rescue members of the royal family to safety, 3 military helicopters rushed towards the royal palace. Unexpectedly, on the dangerous flight path, darkness silently approached. Because the eye of the storm was getting closer, the temperature here began to drop sharply. The oil pipelines froze. The entire fuselage of the plane was covered in ice. Even the propellers instantly froze and stopped spinning. When the entire mechanical system went out of control, the 3 planes also crashed one after another, although the pilots were lucky to survive. But the moment he opened the door, a gust of cold air quickly froze him. The scene shifts to downtown New York City. At this moment, a heavy rain continuously poured down the city. However, the citizens still did not realize the severity of the situation, until a homeless man unexpectedly discovered the sewer pipe was leaking a lot of water. Not long after, the accumulated water overflowed to knee-height and kept rising. Then the whole street was flooded. Traffic was also paralyzed. The frightened citizens sought shelter, including Sam, Jack's son, and his classmate. For safety reasons, Sam intended to take his classmates to a nearby library to take refuge. One of them got a foot injury when passing by a car. At the same moment, with the assistance of the tornado, an extremely powerful tsunami rushed towards the city. Only saw the large statue symbolizing freedom about to be submerged in an instant. 50 meters of seawater had crossed the shoreline, heading towards this bustling city, then spread everywhere, with an arrogant attitude. In a moment, many people were swallowed by the sea. Saw the impending fierce tsunami. Sam hurried to pull his friend, then riskily ran towards the library. Although those who hid upstairs had escaped death, but the real disaster had just begun. Because earlier, with the data provided by the Headland Climate Research Center, Jack's paleoclimate model calculated several superstorm clouds are about to attack most cities and regions in the coming days, including New York, where his son is located. And when the storm passes, they may face a new ice age. At this moment in the library, all mobile phone signals were disconnected. To contact his father, Sam, despite the danger, went to the phone booth downstairs. Fortunately, the phones here were still operational, so Sam called his father. After Jack and his wife learned that their son was safe, they immediately told him not to go outside. Jack said, "A gigantic storm cloud is about to pass through New York. Within that cloud is a storm eye with very low temperatures. If you are in the eye of the storm, you must find everything you can burn to keep warm in the room. Otherwise, you will freeze to death within seconds outside." Jack instructed his son to persevere. He would find a way to rescue him. Because the water levels were rising rapidly, Sam, having just heard his father's promise, immediately plunged into the water. His mother, not receiving a response from her son, collapsed immediately. Jack could only try to comfort his wife, while his friend saw Sam never resurfacing and became extremely worried. Fortunately, Sam finally surfaced from the water. On another side, Jack was packing up, preparing to travel to New York. But at this moment, the head of the National Meteorological Agency came to find him, revealing that the president wanted to hear his advice. At the same time, everyone in the library suddenly heard a strange sound, coming from afar. When people curiously went to the window to check, they saw a gigantic boat, drifting with the current into the city. Jack went to meet the president and shared his findings with everyone. Everyone heard snow and ice would cover the entire northern hemisphere, and were extremely shocked. Someone asked how to deal with this situation. Jack replied that there was no way to solve it. He was speaking while drawing a line on the map, and said, "We must immediately evacuate those in the south, so they can continue moving south, as far as possible. What about those in the north? It is now too late for them. If they go outside, they will die in the storm." After Jack left, the vice president raised a doubt. They cannot evacuate half the country based on a scientist's and even reasoning, abandon the people in the other half. This is clearly an extremely irresponsible action. If he listens to his advice, then we would not have to do so now. If he listens to his advice, then we would not have to do so now. For him, giving advice is very easy. After all, Washington is very safe. But his son is in New York. When the storm cloud appeared, New York City quickly was covered by a thick layer of snow, and places where the tsunami passed were frozen. Many people wanted to escape from this city, so they left one after another buildings and started running south. Even those in the library intended to leave. After discussion, Sam wanted to stop everyone, but no one believed him. Moreover, there was no food or supplies here, so no one wanted to stay. Most people left. Only Sam and his classmates remained, along with the library manager and wanderers. To prepare for the cold, Sam led everyone into the heating room, preparing to burn books to keep warm, but was stopped by the manager. Sam asked, "Do you want to freeze while reading books?" Which made the two people silent. After that, everyone began searching for all books that could be burned. Mostly philosophy books, science law books, even the Bible was brought. Although, there was a dispute over which book to burn first. But in the end, everyone decided that saving lives was the most important. This Bible was the first printed book. It symbolizes the beginning of an era. To me, it means writing is the greatest achievement of humanity. She can laugh. But if Western civilization ends me, at least a small part of it can be preserved. On another side, Jack intended to go to New York alone to find his son, but two colleagues and his best friends insisted on going with him. So after packing their luggage into the car, the three of them set off for New York. At this moment, under the direction of the president, the crowd of citizens began to flee south. They crossed the border all the way to Mexico, as if they were blocked by the Mexican government at the border. So many people intentionally tried to cross the river illegally, and New York is not far away. The three of them, Jack was blocked by the snowstorm. They had no other choice, had to walk forward. However, no one knew what was beneath this layer of ice. Sure enough, not long after, one person fell below because the glass shattered. Thanks to a seatbelt, so the man was just hanging in midair. But it was very difficult to pull him up because of the extreme weight. Despite trying their best, but the weight was still insufficient to support the shattered glass below. Maybe he didn't want to implicate his teammates. So after some hesitation, the man cut the rope on himself. Jack helplessly watched his colleague fall, but could do nothing else. On Sam's side, although burning books could temporarily fend off the cold, but the classmate he had loved secretly for a long time had become infected due to a previous leg wound. At this moment, she had sepsis. If not treated promptly with antibiotics, she would not survive for long. Fortunately, the books not only helped keep warm, and also brought other benefits. The manager stated they need large amounts of penicillin and antibiotics. But with this situation, where can they find it? At this moment, someone mentioned the boat nearby. Maybe there is a medical room. So Sam and two other guys went there to explore. At this moment, in space, astronauts detected the storm clouds growing large, and a storm eye will strike New York in another hour. By then, the entire New York will have to endure extreme cold. Based on the belief of searching for his son, Jack still persevered moving forward. But another colleague couldn't hold on and fell to the ground. At this moment, the group Sam had come to the boat. Fortunately, they found the medical room and obtained the medicine. The wolves escaped from the zoo. Also came here searching for food. While people were not paying attention, a wolf bit someone's leg. Then Sam used a flashlight to fend off the boy. Although they had escaped the attack of the wolf pack, but the people were also trapped in the room. In the critical moment, Sam knew not to waste time here. So he decided to go out. To lure the wolves to protect his classmates from leaving, through the window to another room. After attracting the wolves, he riskily fled. Classmates saw that the wolves had been lured away, so hurriedly left the room. In the end, the group gathered outside, preparing to return. But at this moment, the storm eye had also arrived here. Jack was pulling his colleague, the very person who first noticed the anomaly. The moment he saw the wind stop blowing, he realized something was wrong, so hastily pushed his colleague into the adjacent ventilation shaft. At the same time, when the wind picked up, a gust of cold air began to sweep through. On the other side, Sam also noticed something was wrong. The top of the tower began to freeze, then quickly spread downwards. The group Sam saw immediately hurriedly fled. Although the cold gradually pressed tight, but eventually the three of them reached the library. However, the danger has not yet passed. Everyone could only risk burning books. This time, no one cared about which books to burn anymore, just hoping this fire could fend off the extreme cold. On another side, they sensed that the storm eye had passed. Jack's group set off again to find his son. This time, they saw many people frozen to death on the road. These people were refugees, who had ignored the advice and tried to escape from New York. Jack's group was extremely shocked to see this scene, because the snowstorm had blocked their way and direction, so the two of them could only rest and slowly move forward. Jack hid in a tent, also didn't know if his son was still alive. But anyway, he still had to keep his promise to Sam. The next day, astronauts in space suddenly detected storm clouds on Earth, didn't know when they had dissipated. When Jack woke up, the snowstorm had stopped. The two also saw the sun after a long time. The gigantic boat in front seemed to be saying they had successfully escaped this disaster. Seeing the pristine Statue of Liberty, Jack continued to set off to find his son. although all of New York had become a dead city. But Jack still didn't give up. After a long journey, the two finally reached the library, buried in the snow. After entering, even though Jack called, there was no response. As he was feeling desperate, a faint light suddenly caught his attention. When he opened the frozen door, he saw a group of people who were lucky to survive, including his son. Who is that? My father. Not long after, the army brought helicopters to New York to rescue. Jack's group was also rescued at the same time. Everyone was also happy. They discovered that many people had fortunately escaped this disaster. And this story ends here. If you enjoyed, please give me a subscribe. Goodbye, and see you again.